Welcome back to our conversation with the governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker. So, Governor, last month you attended a meeting of the Republican Governors Association, the group that spent big money to support your last two campaigns. Did they promise you they'll do it again if you run again?
I have a tremendous working relationship with a lot of the folks who are part of that organization. During the course of the pandemic, we talked a lot about what we were up against and what we were doing and how we were dealing with many of the issues that we all shared over the last 15 months. I certainly think the RGA is an organization that likes to see Republican governors win in places they consider to be difficult. And I would certainly hope that if Lieutenant Governor Polito and I were to run again, that they would support our efforts.
So there was no vibe of, hey, get out.
Oh, no. Look, the best thing about that organization, in my opinion, is the political philosophies in it are very broad. Phil Scott and I and Larry Hogan, who are three governors that most people would describe as moderates, are part of an organization that also has a number of governors who are way more conservative than we are. But even there, we still end up with things we can talk about and with sort of similar kinds of problems. I actually wish that in some ways there was more of the dialogue at the federal level that I see between and among not just my Republican colleagues, but my Democratic colleagues as well. I mean, I talked to Governor Lamont and Governor McKee, and before Governor McKee, Governor Raimondo, all the time. And I think in many ways, getting past that letter at the end of your name is a big part of how you actually get work done around here.
Interesting. Well, recently, you're speaking of the R at the end of your name. Your nemesis, state GOP chairman Jim Lyons, met with former President Trump, and he claims he told Trump about opposition here from a, quote, pay-to-play cabal, and also about his efforts to reform the state party, quoting again, so that it works for the grassroots, not the elites and the connected class on Beacon Hill, end quote. He means you. And it's pretty clear that Trump wing of the party here is rallying behind former Rep. Jeff Deal's primary challenge. Do you expect that if you or Karen Polito are on that primary ballot next fall, that Trump will help your opposition?
Look, that's so far down the road, and
it's not that far.
It's not even on my radar at this point in time. I'm pretty focused on the stuff you and I have talked about over the course of the past couple of weeks. 2022. When I think about 2022 at this point, my primary thoughts are about some of the stuff you and I talked about, putting that federal money to work in a way that can do good things for the people of Massachusetts and continuing to be a fiscally disciplined state that generates a surplus and doesn't spend more than it brings in, which is what we've been doing, and getting as many of those people who are still on the sidelines back to work. There'll be plenty of opportunities to talk about campaign 2022 if it becomes something that's that the lieutenant governor and I are part of. But no, I'm not focused on that stuff at this point at all.
Is Lieutenant Governor Polito ready to be a successful candidate for governor?
I have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for the work that the lieutenant governor's done over the course of the past 7 years. Let's remember that she put together a reopening program here in Massachusetts, working with our colleagues in the public health and the business community. There was one of the places in this country where the economy reopened, never closed again. There were some adjustments along the way, but we never saw the bump up in cases that happened in so many other places after they reopened. She's also been, in many respects, the primary contact with the administration with local officials. And we've been able to solve a ton of problems together because of the trust that she's developed with so many of those folks in local government, again, who happen to be all kinds of political persuasions. I think she's a terrific ally, a terrific asset, and she would be a terrific statewide candidate. Absolutely.
All right. Governor Baker, thanks for your time. Come again soon.
It's nice to see you, John.